This is an explainer for the beginning of John's Gospel, an incredibly famous bit of scripture. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was with God. He was in the beginning with God, and it goes on and on. And it's famous because you might know it in carol services, but people often know it in quite a poetic way, and it kind of washes over them without them really understanding it. So this is going to, in the next 5 minutes, I'll explain the basic content of what John is trying to say, and why he is trying to say it the way he is. And to get that, the first thing you have to realise is John, either the writer of John's Gospel, either kind of was a disciple writing it in old age, or the person writing it down knew John the disciple. So they're witnesses to a living figure, Jesus of Nazareth, who lived and worked and walked around on earth, and was known and ate and drank. And although he is a real human, their conclusion is that this person is actually the very presence of God, God in human form. And they want to say that. And they're writing in Greek. And the problem there, though, in Greek culture, is that they're quite used to humans or gods in human form. Alexander the Great was regarded as a god. The Emperor Augustus is regarded as a god. And before that, you've got the kind of pagan gods like Artemis, the goddess of hunting, Apollo, the god of music. And John is very keen to stress that Jesus is not like that. He's not one of these randy Greek gods or kind of Hercules figures. He is hooked up to the Hebrew God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, from the Hebrew Bible. And so this passage, in a way, is his effort to both express that he is divine, but second, to say it's divine not in the kind of Greek way, in a Hebrew God way. And one of the ways he does that, just the very first line, in the beginning. He starts his gospel, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and so on. Well, in the beginning is also how the Hebrew Bible starts, the beginning of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And listeners would have picked this up. And the metaphor he uses, the word, hot logos, he draws on a backwater of the Old Testament, which was getting some traction around the time he's writing, and you can see it in Proverbs 8, where there is a wisdom figure who seems to accompany God in his work of creation. So when he's digging out the seas and building up the mountains, there is this figure of wisdom. And logos is actually word. There is another Greek word for wisdom, Sophia, which he could have used. But logos is not just word, it's also sort of something about logic. So reason, it carries some of that baggage. And there was this sense that there was wisdom with God, the creator God at the beginning, and this was a sort of like a personified figure. And John, the gospel writer, hooks Jesus up with this. And this is a slightly mind-blowing concept, but what it's saying is that Jesus, the Messiah, was always hot-wired into the universe from the beginning. In some way, Jesus was part of the plan for God to reveal himself into the world as a human. It wasn't just sort of a chance, it was there from the beginning. And so piggybacking off this Hebrew idea of wisdom at the beginning of creation, John uses logos to get going. And so that is the key. But then, the next key to the passage is that John, to his he's mystified, but he also recognises that not everyone believes in Jesus. They don't seem to do it. And he is always amazed. So he has this trade-off that the world, he was in the world, but the world knew him not. The light shines in the darkness doesn't overcome it, but the darkness is not responding to him. So he's recognising that although this is God's plan all along, some people are not recognising him. But there is hope for us. We think we can recognise him in the end. So, and then you can recognise him and full of grace and truth. The one, oh God, let me get it out. It's this staggering finish. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. So that's Jesus. And we have seen his glory. The glory is of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. There are some who don't believe in him, but we do. And we know that this Jesus was always God's plan to reveal himself from the beginning of creation. And he uses this sort of metaphor, hologos, to get that across. And that's just a sort of beginner's guide to John 1.